the candy? Can we fly in the candy?
We have some treats for anybody who has questions tonight.
That, oh my gosh.
We have Sam lollipops. We have Holly Hovars.
Well, technically, I have 11 questions. Do I get a lollipop?
No.
Rats. Hello, everybody. My name is Clark Wolf. I'm so happy to be here with you all. And I've been a fan of this movie for a very long time. And we're here not only to celebrate, the screening here at Beyond Fest, but Trick or Treat is finally getting a theatrical release. So, speaking of Mike, it's been 15 years since Trick or Treat was originally released on home video. Do you know, is it true that Trick or Treat is the most expensive straight-to-DVD movie ever made?
Oh, that's a good question. I honestly don't know.
That is the trivia.
This wasn't a super expensive movie, so...
But straight-to-DVD, I mean.
Yeah.
It looks like $1 million. So since the movie has grown in popularity, I mean, Sam is obviously this unofficial symbol of Halloween, and I just wanted to start by asking how it feels to finally see this movie that has this massive fandom and has been so well received over the years finally make its way to over 1,000 screens.
It feels good. It feels really good. Do you guys ever have one of those dreams/nightmares where you're back in high school and you have to take one more test before you're allowed to proceed with your life? That's kind of what it feels like. It feels like finally closing a chapter that's been open forever. Yeah.
Well, the fandom, so one of my favorite things as a horror fan, as a fan of the Halloween holiday, is showing people this movie. People who, I'm sure that there are people in the crowd who can relate. Like when your friends come to you and they're like, okay, what should I watch this Halloween? And I'm like, well, have you seen Trick or Treat? What? And then it's there you go. The fandom has been driving this movie for so many years. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like how it's been for you meeting fans and talking to fans and experiencing their enthusiasm for so long?
That's been the best thing, honestly. This movie had very little fanfare when it was dumped to DVD back in 2009. But the saving grace has been watching people like yourselves discover it. And one of the cool things is that this movie, I feel like it benefited from the very early days of social media and bloggers and the internet. It's one of the few good things that the internet's actually produced, especially these days. But a lot of movies come out and they have these multi-million-dollar marketing budgets. Where you see superheroes plastered on the side of Taco Bell cups and all that crap. This didn't have that, and so when I saw somebody wearing a Trick or Treat shirt or asking me to sign a toy, I knew that was authentic. It wasn't manufactured fandom. It was real. And so that sort of warms the heart, because you know it's real and it's not just created by a corporate marketing machine.
Can we go back all the way to the beginning? Let's go back to NYU, because I know Trick or Treat originally started as a series of hand-drawn animated shorts. So can you tell us about where the inspiration for that project came from and then sort of how it grew to be a feature script?
Yeah, it was actually one animated short. The character was just sort of somebody Sam was just somebody I was just doodling in my margins in my notebooks when I was bored in class. And then it came time to do my senior thesis film. And so I thought, well, why not take this character and do something with it? And so for 9 months, I hand drew. This is all before computers, kids. This cell animation where you draw your characters by hand on these clear acetate cells and shot it on 16 millimeter film, cut it on film. There's not a single 1 or 0 or digital piece to this movie. It was all hand drawn. It was very much a labor of love. And actually, one of the final shots of the animated film, I had to cut myself with an X-Acto knife accidentally, so I just splattered my blood on Sam's face and made a dark wish. And here we are today. Witchcraft, it works. Anyway, but yeah, so it started as an animated film, and then he started popping up in a series of greeting cards that I would send out to friends and family, and started selling them to like mom and pop stores. Like, you guys ever been to Dark Delicacies in Burbank? Yeah. So Sue and Dell would sell my greeting cards. I would just take a batch to them like every couple months, and they would just sell them. I think they still do. And that's how it all started. And then I would send the animated short out to different producers, and everybody said, "This is great, but you should write a feature screenplay." And I was an animator at the time, and writing a screenplay seemed terrifying, especially coming out here where you go to Starbucks and you can't swing a dead cat without somebody writing a screenplay. So what I did was I took 3 short stories I had also written at NYU as homework assignments, and I just sort of like stuck them together, and I started like sprinkling Sam in between them. So Anna Paquin's story, Dylan Baker's story, and a previous version of the school bus story were like NYU homework assignments that I just revised, and I slapped it together, and I said, "Here's my spec screenplay. It's like Tales from the Crypt." And again, here we are.
And does it feel sort of, I feel comfortable giving you sort of credit for, you know, being a part of this boom, resurgence of anthologies. You know, like I feel like, and you know, sometimes like the VHS franchise, or there's so many Southbound, you know, XX. There's so many feature film anthologies. Some are directed by multiple directors, but the thing that always stood out to me about this one is this is all you. Was that? Talk to me about approaching an anthology when it wasn't necessarily in book. I know that obviously with Tales from the Crypt and like on HBO, you know, earlier, but at the time for a feature film, it seems like it wasn't necessarily as trendy as it is now.
Oh, it wasn't trendy at all. It was forbidden. At the time when I'd written the screenplay, the only thing in theaters were like Scream knockoffs. You know, so it was like 5 20-something kids playing teenagers. It was just slasher horror. And knowing that horror movies are very much cyclical, I said, well, eventually horror anthologies have to come back. So I thought, well, start the next bandwagon instead of jumping on the current one. But what happened was I wasn't originally attached to direct it. The initial producer for the movie, who was one of my first mentors, was Stan Winston. So he was the first one who read it and said, let's make this. So he wanted to direct a segment, and then he said, well, let me call some of my buddies up and see if they want to do segments. So he called up Toby Hooper, Carpenter, and George Romero. So initially, those 4 geniuses were going to direct different segments of the movie. And then we sent it out to studios. Everybody passed. Everybody at the studios said, this is filled with vampires, werewolves, and zombies. Who wants to see that? And so they said it was too old-fashioned.
That's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
Was it much different than what we saw?
It's pretty much the same.
That's wild to me because it does not feel old-fashioned. It feels, especially for the rather edgy.
No, but again, at the time, we were going from teen slashers into torture porn.
Sure.
So, you know, anything with a sense of humor, God forbid, was forbidden.
Do you happen to remember which director was attached to which segment?
Carpenter was going to do the Dylan Baker story. I think Stan was going to do the werewolf one.
Sure.
It's been so long. It's been decades.
You can make it up. Okay, let's go back to Sam. You know, where did we talked about the origins of your days at NYU and the doodling, but where did he really come from, and how has his meaning over the years sort of evolved for the audience?
You mean like what is his origin story?
Well, I mean, yeah, what's his origin story? Not necessarily like Samhain, we know it, but like his, you know, what is his origin story?
I'm never telling.
Okay.
Never. You learn too much about a monster and you take away its power.
Fair.
Yeah, but it's been around for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the morality tale. So we talked about a little bit more generally about anthologies. I think a lot of traditional anthologies, whether on film or on television, is playing around with the morality play. There is not necessarily a clean-cut dichotomy between good and evil with your characters. So can you sort of talk a little bit about that? What were you trying to convey there?
That the real monsters in life are people. Because if you really watch the movie, the monsters in this movie are the good guys. And the real villains are the next door neighbor who's poisoning children, and the creepy old man who helped drive a bus off a cliff to drown a whole other batch of kids. Whereas the heroes or anti-heroes of the movie are the supernatural beasts.
Let's talk about the werewolf segment for a second. I will say, I know we're not supposed to pick favorites, that's my favorite. We're so starved for werewolf content. I know it's expensive, but it looks so good. I was watching the movie before I came here, and it looks so good. And also, I will say, as a female horror fan, it's empowering. That segment is empowering, and I love the turns and I love the twists still to this day. So, can you talk about working with Anna and the other ladies and shooting that whole segment?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because originally, in the very, very first draft, it wasn't a female pack of werewolves. Originally, it was just sort of like a mix of 20-something kids of both sexes. But I think, like you, I just got tired of seeing women as victims in horror movies, and it felt right to sort of just turn that on its head, And also, like, there aren't a lot of female werewolves in decades of horror movies. Like, it's typically a dude thing, But I was very much inspired by Dante's The Howling, where you finally got to see like a really cool few female werewolves. So I sort of just took that ball and ran with it. But it was a ton of fun, and Anna's a total trooper. She loved to get weird. She loved to get dark, and she read the script and she's like, "Fuck yeah, let's do this."
And speaking, okay, so you all have a stacked cast here, and it's also, every time I go back for a rewatch, it's fun to see everybody then and where they are now. So let's talk about Brian Cox.
Fuck off!
Krieg, so it's so fun. I was talking about this outside with somebody else. Brian Cox has this like wonderful horror legacy. And so this is just another really wonderful installment. So can you talk a little bit about like getting him for the movie and then working with him on that segment?
Yeah, we sent the script to Brian, and I included with the script, I always do this, like script plus artwork and storyboards. It's easy to sort of, I think, turn your nose up at a screenplay, or sometimes it can be daunting to sit down and read it, but if you sort of sprinkle it with concept art and storyboards, it just makes it a little bit more inviting. So I did that with all the cast members and wrote like a really sweet letter. And he said yes really quickly. And he said he had one condition, which is that he wanted to look like John Carpenter. And I was really nervous about that idea at first because he kind of did like a makeup test, and I was like, But I was also worried that it's just, if it was too much of an homage, but it turned out really great, and he was amazing too, because he claims he didn't actually read the script, that he just said yes on sort of a whim or a lark. I don't know if that's true, but regardless, he was a blast to work with, totally down for anything. And then at the end, when we finally wrapped him, he like ripped the makeup off of his face like a lizard person from V, just like ripping it off. He's like, never again, never. He just got so sick of the makeup that he decided to design it for himself.
I'm sure you would have been happy if he looked like Brian Cox.
I'd be completely
sure.
content.
But
yeah.
he had to be Carpenter.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, that's the dream. So that storyline is also very action heavy. Can you talk about shooting that sequence in particular, like the physicality and the Sam, and I'm assuming there are actual puppets involved.
Oh yeah, it's everything's animatronic. I mean, this is before the days of CG characters, really, especially at that budget level. So everything, you know, the werewolves, Sam, the hand crawling around. The hand crawling around is actually Quinn Lord, who I think was 7 at the time. Like, it's actually his hand, and we just, you know, digitally removed the arm and the rest of him. But I really wanted to go for that, you know, that classic in-camera look. But that sequence in particular was a blast because we storyboarded the hell out of it. Just every single shot was boarded, and we just went right down the list.
Let's also talk about Dylan Baker as the serial killer principal. Talk to me about the. I know we can't reveal any origins, but in your brain.
Oh, I mean, Dylan Baker's character was Norman Bates. Like Norman Bates, if he had a kid. You know, it's like if he had a happier ending and he went and, you know, married some woman that he probably killed later, but he had this kid that he was sort of stuck with but loved. Like, you know, there's that classic scene in Psycho where Norman's cleaning up after the murder and disposing of Janet Leigh's body in the bog. And I thought, well, how funny would it be if this, you know, his 10-year-old son is suddenly just pestering him about carving a jack-o'-lantern, and knowing where that would probably end up, that, you know, he would take that kid under his wing and pass the torch to him.
All right, so I know that a lot of the fans out there, and we're going to open it up to you all in just a second, so get your questions ready. But I am going to ask a question that I'm sure you're all wondering: a sequel. So fans have been teased about this for so long, and now we're getting this big theatrical release. So is this happening? What do you think? Tell me something.
No pressure.
Yeah. And now that I've got you up here.
I know. It's just, I'm sorry for the teasing that you guys might have experienced, especially because, you know, at a past event we made a very big splashy announcement. I have to be very careful with my words right now because if I screw this up, Legendary's going to dart me and drag me off the stage. But I'm very excited about the possibility. Legendary is very excited about the possibility. It is currently in active development. That does not mean greenlit. It is in active development. Very active. And I hope that we'll be able to share some more news about that soon.
That was a very...
I know it's cryptic. I know it's terrible. I have to be so careful with like how I phrase these things.
It's true. They're waiting there and there.
Is that okay?
Are
you guys getting like texts from
scary
no?
people?
Okay.
Right?
All right.
No. All right. Audience, what do we got? Let's see. Yes, right here. Yes.
First of all, I want to say that the first time I saw Dougherty, I traded a metalhead in my math class for a bootleg DVD.
Wait, you traded what?
I traded my homework assignments. I gave a metalhead my homework assignments for a bootleg DVD in high school.
Wow.
So
So
that's
you're admitting to a federal crime right now.
Yes.
Just say allegedly. I may
You can just give me $15 and you can make up for it.
Okay. My question was, so the scene with the kids in the bus when she falls back, were you inspired by prom night in any way?
Not consciously.
Oh, okay.
No.
That was just my question.
Okay. Do you want a lollipop?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I'm a little like starstruck looking at you right now.
Actually, though, we didn't really ask much about that. Was that based on folklore from your hometown? Was that based on just...
Oh, the school bus?
Uh-huh.
It's because when I was a kid, I always viewed getting on the school bus as like a chariot of death. Like terrible memories of school buses, whether you're like getting picked on, but just the anxiety and dread of having to go to fucking school every morning.
Terrifying.
The first time I realized I was going to die, I was 5 years old on the back of a school bus.
Anything else you want to say about that? We're here to listen.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. What else we got?
Right over there in the middle there. He in the mask.
First off, I want to say thank you for Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Thank you.
Yeah, King of the Monsters fucking rules.
Thank you.
But my question is, can you talk a little bit about the score?
Oh yes, Douglas Pipes, who could not be here today, unfortunately. I fell in love with Douglas's work in the movie Monster House, which is another great Halloween movie, by the way. Highly recommend it. Because it reminded me of like Jerry Goldsmith and like, you know, throwback 80s music. And so he worked with me on Krampus as well. But yeah, it's like wanted to bring back the idea of like theme and melody in movie scores and not just droning. You know, so yeah. You want a candy bar? All right. But you have to eat it in front of us. Yeah, it's not poison, I swear. I swear. There you go. These are for sale, FYE. FYI.
Oh yeah, we have an animatronic Sam out there. There's so
Created by
much.
Spirit Halloween. Thank you, Spirit.
I got you. All right, do you want to pick the next one?
Standing up back there. Hi.
I just wanted to know about the chronological order of the movie. Like, where did the idea start to have kind of like a Pulp Fiction type of thing instead of being like, oh, there's this segment, and this segment,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of anthologies do?
It's interesting because the original first draft, we didn't play around with the chronology. It was very traditional Tales from the Crypt, Creepshow style, where it was just one story after the other. The characters still crossed over into each other's stories. And then there were other drafts where I did mix things up, but ultimately what we shot, it was very chronological. And then when it got to the editing room, what we realized was, even though the movie was still only like roughly 90 minutes, every time you stop and start a movie, the audience's mind has to stop and restart. So the movie felt long. And so ultimately decided to mix it all up. And it seems to work.
When it was more chronological.
Oh wait, you want a candy?
Do you want candy? When it was more chronological, did you have a rap segment, a wraparound segment?
No, there was never a wraparound segment.
All right, I'm trying to get y'all all the BTS, y'all. How about right here? Yes.
Okay, I just want to say I'm a big fan, and obviously jack-o'-lanterns play a huge part in this movie. It's kind of like a two-parter. What's your favorite jack-o'-lantern movie, and do you roughly know how many you used in the movie?
What was my favorite jack-o'-lantern and how many did we use? My favorite jack-o'-lantern is Sam's jack-o'-lantern that bursts into flame in Mr. Creep's room. And we had a lot. Mostly real, but occasionally we would have plastic and film ones, which are a thing. You can actually go out and buy plastic jack-o'-lanterns and carve them up. They're a ton of fun. What kind of candy do you want? What's that?
A lollipop? But
Sure.
Well, you do that. I realize I'm being biased and I'm not calling on people. Okay, somebody right there has a black shirt on and they are waving their hand like this. Hello, yes.
Hi. So I just had the question of, were there any improv moments or mistakes that made it into the film itself?
My favorite improv moment, when Anna's walking alone through the forest, and she turns around and she's supposed to be seeing, you know, Dylan Baker there for sort of this jump scare moment. I actually jumped out at her to get like a real scare, you know. So I hid behind the camera, and without telling her, I sort of like jumped at her and screamed at her, which is something I do in my day-to-day life. Many of my past victims are sort of scattered in the audience right now. But it was something, it was like a trick I learned, I guess on The Exorcist. Friedkin used to walk around shooting a gun, like shooting blanks. They were blanks, not a loaded gun. But so I thought, well, what's the more gentle version of that? You know? Sure, come on.
How much time do we have? We have one more. All right, one more.
Let's do 2 more. Come on.
2 more, and I'm gonna let you choose because I don't want to be blamed.
So there's like a ton of Carpenter references in there in the movie. Like there's I don't know, maybe I just saw it, but like I'm curious.
Carpenter's God.
There's 2 things I was curious about: the hand crawling away at the end, and him saying, "You gotta be fucking kidding me." I'm
Right.
assuming it's a reference to the thing. I'm
Oh.
curious if he or any of the other directors that were initially signed on, have they seen the movie?
Ooh, great question.
I don't know. That's a really, really good question. But I don't know.
Next time you see John Carpenter,
You can ask
me.
him at the next Q&A.
He's signing here in LA later. this
Oh, is he?
year.
Like his answer is probably fuck no or something.
That is probably his answer. I have interviewed him.
Back there, standing up.
If you were going to direct another holiday movie, what would it be? What holiday would you choose?
I've always joked that Passover would be hilarious. Because we don't have a lot of Jewish horror. And also because just I'm not Jewish, but like whenever my Jewish friends would tell me about Passover, I'm like, that's horrifying. You know, like the idea that like, you know, everyone gathered, I might be getting this wrong. I'm not.
I'll fact check you.
All right. But the idea that the family gathers, and I've only seen the 10 Commandments like a million times, so I'm going by that. And also that part in Prince of Egypt where like the angel of death comes down,
Oh yeah,
right?
the blood.
But I mean, that's just a horror movie.
Oh yeah, it's metal as fuck, yeah.
Run, Elijah, run!
Old Testament, yeah,
Yeah.
that empty seat. What if it moves?
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if some other young Jewish filmmaker wants to take that ball and run with it, go for it. But I just think it'd be hilarious. It's just that, you know, all the holidays have like a really dark component to them. Like Thanksgiving has a whole like genocide thing going underneath it. You know? Like we wouldn't be having this turkey dinner if it wasn't for like, you know, a whole race
Genocide,
of people being
yeah.
erased.
You said it great. Genocide
Yeah,
story.
Easter, you get zombie Jesus. You know, all the holidays are just fucked up. You know, Valentine's Day is because a guy got like beheaded and set on fire, I think. And I mean, the list goes on. So I don't know. Maybe that should just be the rest of my career.
Arbor Day.
Arbor Day.
Druids. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. We want to
Seriously, thank you. Hold on. Thank you.
Thank you to Beyond Fest. Thank you to Legendary. And give it up.
Hold on. I'm curious. How many people have never seen this movie before? Holy shit. Wow. Okay. Did you enjoy it? Awesome. Okay. And I'm asking all of you here in this theater now, do me a favor, do all of us a favor, tell your friends to go see it in theaters. Think about it, share it. If you want a sequel, take your friends to the theaters. All right? But thank you, seriously. Have a great Halloween.